Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Lead, Sell, Grow the Human Experience podcast. Super stoked about this episode. I guarantee you, my guest today is going to bring so much energy. You're going to have so many aha moments. Get a box of tissues ready. Wherever you are, whether you're driving, you're sitting down watching this, you're listening to wherever, this story is freaking bonkers. And it's one story that really shows that our past have absolutely nothing to do with our future. Too many of us think that whatever happened to us when we were younger, little, we have to hold on to that pain. But my guest today is living proof that that's not the case. Before I make an official introduction, let me share with you how this interview came about. So a while back, somebody introduces me to this crazy guy, Steve Hardison. Not like an introduction in person. It was like, hey, there's this video on YouTube called TBOLIT-NFL. You got to go check it out. It's crazy. So I check out the video, and Steve Hardison, aka the ultimate coach, is speaking from stage, which is pretty rare. So that led me down to getting the book. Now, I wish I could tell you he wrote the book. He didn't even write the book. A guy who he knew went to him and said, I want to write a book about you. Can you imagine adding so much value to people that they want to write a book about you that you didn't even want written? And Steve fought him off for I don't know how long. Anyway, this book ends up being written. I'm going to honor Steve today and take mine off and leave his on, and highly recommend that if you haven't seen it, go get this. It's The Ultimate Coach. That's the name of the book.
Yeah.
This book is thick. It's not thin. It took me like a week to read it. All right. And I'm a slow reader. It took me 1 week. I couldn't put it down. So after I read the book, I emailed Steve and I said, hey, Steve, just finished your book. Would love for you to be a guest on my show because I think you're awesome. And he did something that no one's ever done before. He called me. So like I emailed him at like 5 a.m. before I was heading out to the gym. In my email, he's got my signature and my phone number. He picked up the phone and called me. He didn't call me to tell me he wants to be on my show. He called me to tell me he's not coming on my show. He said, listen, I'm not going to come on your show because I don't do podcast interviews. But what I'll do for you, and by the way, we spoke for a while. He got to know me, and Steve is just so warm and kind. And it's like one of those guys you don't want to get off the phone with and kind of want to keep around your circle. By the way, he charges, I think, $250,000 to be your coach for 1 year. But he gave me 3 names to reach out to for podcasts. I'm not going to mention those guys' names. I reached out. Some of them I spoke with, but nothing really happened with those. So randomly, he calls me up again 3 weeks ago, and he's like, hey, what happened with those names I gave you? So I told him what happened. He said, I got another name for you. I said, okay. He tells me, you got to interview Kusudi. He gives me his phone number. He said, text Kusudi and see if he comes on the interview. So this is how this came about. So I started digging into who is Kusudi, and holy cannoli, go to Instagram. I am Kusudi, and you'll find out who this man is. But what I gained from who he is he helps people become a better version of themselves by teaching them how to be somebody different. So in order for us to become, we got to start being first. That's something I learned from Steve's book. That's something I'm learning from Kusudi. And by the way, Kusudi is being coached by Steve. That's how he became recommended. So Kusudi, welcome to the podcast. Sorry this took so long, man.
No, hey, listen, I didn't know the backstory, right? So you just reached out to me, right? People would just reach out and say, hey, Steve, Steve told me to reach out. And anytime Steve tells somebody to reach out, I'm like an automatic yes. Like there's a reason that Steve had the person reach out. So hearing the backstory of how it occurred for you, man, it's funny. And it's such Steve Hardison fashion. Like he'll call until you know, and you'll feel so loved in the know. And then he'll create something with you to empower you moving forward. And that's who Steve is, man. So I love hearing that story, man.
That's awesome. So as I was digging into Steve Hardison, there aren't many videos of Steve. There are many videos of like people talking about Steve, not many of Steve, but there's one where you did with him where it's like a live coaching. And I watched it, but I didn't connect the dots. I didn't realize that was you.
Yeah.
Guys threw freaking bricks through his windows during a coaching session. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Yeah.
awesome. Anyway, so Kusudi, 18 years old, you had a life event happen. I want
Yeah.
to go back because I want people to understand not only who you are today, but where you came from, if that's all right.
Yeah. 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 So where would you like me to start?
Yeah, 18. Where were you? Like, where were you living when the big life event happened to you?
Yeah. So I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. And when I was 18, I was living in Indianapolis, you know? And I was just talking to one of my friends about this, you know, well, let me set some context before that. You know, is early in my life, I started getting involved in the streets. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. That steamed over to me getting involved in the streets. When I was 15, I went to juvenile for a pistol and a bulletproof vest when I was 15. And then that didn't deter me. You know, I kept being in the streets, hustling, selling drugs, things like that. And 18 years old, 2012, that's when kind of one of the biggest life-changing events happened that you're speaking about. You know, I was telling my friend, we was actually just talking about this like 2 days ago, man. I was like, you know, has there ever been something in your life, a moment where your intuition is telling you something and you didn't listen and something came to pass? You know, and that year, that's what that was for me. I remember telling my friend that year, saying like, yo, if I don't get outside of Indianapolis, something life-changing is going to happen. He was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. If I don't get outside of Indianapolis, something life-changing is going to happen. And then on October 13th, it's October in Indianapolis fall. I'm at this house party. You know, those parties where it's like the parent is out of town. We about to have a party. We're going to clean it up before they come back. They'll never know, right? So I'm at one of those type of events, and you know, confrontation starts breaking out. They're kind of really rooted from like jealousy, everything that comes with kind of that territory of making money, being on the scene, you know, being the person, everything like that. And one moment I'm leaving this house party, looking at my car, and the next moment I heard a loud boom, and I'm looking at the sky, and I'm laying on this cold ground, and I remember feeling around my body to see what was going on because it felt as if I just got hit in my head with a baseball bat. And as I'm feeling around my body, I'm looking at my hands and I see that my hands are starting to get covered in blood and blood is starting to form around me. And that's when I realized I just been shot. And I tell people that in that moment, you know, I thought I got shot in my neck. I thought I was going to die. And in the face of death, there's only a couple things that truly matters. There's only a couple things that's on your mind. There's only a couple things that you're truly considering at that time. You know, you could be at a time period in your life right now where you feel like that you're thinking about so much. There's so much going on. You know, life could be lifing for you. You feel like you may be lost. You don't know what to do. You may be making money and you feel like this really isn't it, right? Whatever that is, thinking about how to expand your businesses, thinking about where to go, thinking about just all these different capacities. But in that moment, you're not thinking about all those things. You know, the first thing that I thought about was how is it that I'm going to be remembered? You know, in the face of death, I started thinking about how is it that I'm going to be remembered? You know, you're not thinking about who's going to have my money or have my shoes or my cars, or it's like, how are people going to remember me? You know, the second thing I thought about was the time or the lack of time that I spent with my family. You know, it was like, have you ever watched a movie and somebody was like near death experience and it's like their life just like slows up and it's like just playing replays of their life? Like that's how it was. It felt like I was like in a movie theater, like with this big screen, but it was replaying my life. And I'm seeing all the memories of, you know, with my family, with my mom, with my brothers, with the people that I love the most. And it's like a replay, like a recap of my life. So I tell people that in that moment, you're going to think about the time or the lack of time that you spend with your family. You know, so if there's somebody listening to this right now, you're not going to care that your sister wore your shoes without telling you, or that your brother still owes you the $200, or like none of those things are going to matter, right? So make amends with those people now, because I promise you, in that time period, it's not going to matter. And then you think about like the impact that I make, like what impact did I make on this earth? They say that you're loved for one generation, talked about for two, and forgotten after that. That means most people, you love for one generation, your kids will love you. Hopefully, your kids will love you, right? Your grandkids will talk about you. Like I remember grandma, I remember grandpa, but now after that, you're forgotten about. Most people don't know the names of all 8 other great grandparents. I've spoken around the world on stages, literally around the world. And I think I've only had 2 people. One of them is a close friend. She always raises her hand when she sees me speak. I'm like, you're the only person that raises your hand. Oh, who knows the name of all 8 of their great grandparents? And most people don't. But the Martin Luther Kings, the Nelson Mandelas, the Mahatma Gandhi, like we know all these great people, but you don't know the name of your own flesh and blood. And it's because they didn't do anything significant enough to be remembered by for generations down the line. So for me, I started really talking about purpose and discovering my purpose. And I was big on that because the only way to be remembered for generations down the line is to make such an impact that people are still talking about you when you're not here. And that impact has to be correlated to your purpose. It has to be correlated to the mission, the reason that you came here to be, that vibrational alignment with yourself, source, ancestor, spirit, God, that you're meant to fulfill to uplift humanity, people, animals, in order just to make the world a better place in some capacity. So
Where
that's
did
kind
you
of
get
what.
shot? I mean, I know you said you heard a loud bang, felt like you got hit in the head with a bat. Where did you get shot?
Yeah, I got shot in my head. A bullet went in underneath my earlobes on both sides. So it went in on my right side and it came out. A bullet went straight through, right underneath my earlobes. I
Right
was
by like
super.
jaw? Like what was the damage?
Yeah, the only thing that happened was the bullet fractured my jaw. So I was in a hospital for like 4 days. And I was waiting in the hospital for 4 or 5 days because they couldn't believe nothing was wrong. So they had me in the ICU unit. And I mean, I'm up moving the next day. And I remember they had, top surgeons from all over Indiana coming to see me. They asked, can they have their like leading class of IU to come and see me? Because they were like, we've been, in this profession for 20, 30 years. We've never seen anything like this. Like you should have some level of vocal damage or brain trauma or memory, like something. But the only thing that happened was my jaw was wired shut. So I had to wire my jaw shut for about 6 weeks. And I was out of the hospital in like 4 to 5 days.
Man,
Super.
I had a buddy that got sucker punched in the face and he had to get his jaw wired for 6 weeks since he was fine. You got shot. Oh my God. So much to ask here. Okay. I gotta ask this because we're not looking at the enlightened Kusudi. By the way, what was your name before it was Kusudi?
Kavan.
Kavan. Okay, so Kavan was laying there, right? Kavan, the gangbanger, the drug dealer, 18 years old. And are you sure, like, are you 100% positive? Like, you remember that moment after being shot and looking up? Or do you feel like you created that memory after as you was becoming enlightened about like thinking about leaving a legacy and,
Yeah.
do you really remember
nobody,
that's exactly what happened?
nobody ever asked me that question. That is a phenomenal question, right? So the first thing, like in that moment, as I'm laying there, the first thing I thought about was, damn, is this how my mom's gonna find me? Is this how my mom's gonna find me?
Were you guys close?
Yeah, we're really close. That's my lady. I'm like the first thing is like, damn, I really fucked up this time, like I really messed up this time. Is this how my mom's gonna find me? And yeah, I did think about those things. I did think about how it's gonna be remembered, and the memories of the flashing, and you're just seeing all the memories, the memories you love the most with your friends, and like that is truly real. It's like a movie, like it's a screen. That's truly real. But the very first thing that came to my mind was my mom. Ironically, my mom is like my first time getting arrested when I was in juvenile. I was running from the police and she called me and she just sent something. I was on the phone with her when I got arrested, and I was on the phone with her my last time getting arrested as well. And she just always had this intuition. Like my mom it's just a motherly instinct, right? Like, so the first thing I thought about was, is this how my mom gonna find me laying here on this concrete?
That's a powerful thought. So maybe that was your purpose to not go.
Yeah.
I saw a clip of you mentioning a few of your favorite books, And I probably would have had the same exact list, right? Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Asking It Is Given by Esther Hicks. The other one I thought about, I was wondering if you read or not. It was a trilogy when I read it, but I think there's a fourth book now. It's Conversations with God by Neil
I have it
Donald
in my
Walsh.
library though. No,
So
I have it in my library. I haven't read it.
I listened to it on Audible because God changes voice. It's almost like
Mhm.
Outwitting the Devil if you listen to it on Audible.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think I've listened to 4 or 5 times in the last 6 months. I'm training for a
Yeah.
marathon. Every time I go running, I would have that book playing. But in Conversations with God, I can't remember which series it was. God said, all souls die, or all people die when their soul's ready for them to die. Like, no one's gonna die unless they're ready. It's such a deep, deep, deep concept. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe you weren't ready yet. Like you just, there was a purpose for you to continue on. But then I watched another video of yours, and this is like, us meeting for the first. We literally met 3-4 minutes before we went record.
Yeah.
And then, so this was at 18, but that wasn't a life-changing event.
No.
Because then you said 19, 20, 21, you're in juvie, or you're in and out of jail.
You know what made it life-changing? I tell people this is that wisdom is not found in experiences. Wisdom is found in the reflection of experiences. And mastery is found in the implementing the insights that you gain from the reflections. Like, that's where mastery is found, right? So it wasn't the event that changed everything, because at the time I just took it like it was part of the game. If you were an investor and you just went and made a bad investment, you're not just going to stop investing. Like, no, you're going to get back in the game. You're going to say, I'm going to do it smarter, better, look at analysis next time, right? So in that mind frame, that's how I took it. So it wasn't that event that changed my life. It was the reflection upon that event, and that came when I was in jail. And I tell people, like, being in jail was one of the best things that could have ever happened to my life. It allowed me to be still.
Why'd you go to jail?
For guns, marijuana, pounds of marijuana, money, stolen vehicle. Yeah, that's why I was in jail my last time. So my last time in jail, between 19 and 21, I was in and out of jail. Until when I was 21, I was in jail. I had open cases in 4 different counties throughout Indianapolis, getting caught with just pounds and money. And I was facing up to 10 years in prison, lost over 6 figures. So I spent about a year in jail, going back and fighting cases and everything. But that's when I allowed myself to be still. I kind of related to people, like, now that we're kind of out of it, but I kind of related to, like, people being in the pandemic. It's like, like, everybody remembers when COVID happens, and, like, now you're in the confines of your home or your apartment, whatever that is. And now, like, whatever that you weren't dealing with because you were just so caught up in life and going to work, and, like, now you got to deal with that. Now you got to sit with yourself. And, like, now you're asking yourself the important questions. It's like, damn, do I really want to go back to this job? What am I doing with my life? Like, you really be with yourself. And that's like a micro version of what it's like to be in jail, right? So in that time, it allowed me to truly just be with myself. I started reading books. I started journaling. I never was journaling before. I was never reading books before. And I started, asking myself the questions. What am I here for? What is my purpose? My life has to be more than this. I'm in jail and I see my friends on the news. 2 of my friends got killed. They got shot and killed when I was in jail. They're on the news. Somebody else that we knew from the streets got sentenced to life in prison. I'm seeing people get sentenced to 20, 30, 40, 50 years and for situations that I've been in myself. And I'm like, they got to be more than life to this. So it was the reflecting upon that event that I'm like, I really started realizing, like, wow, I survived. I really survived a shot in the head. And I've lost over a dozen people that I know personally that's been shot and killed. And I'm like, I have to be here for a reason. Like, there has to be something more than this. And, Eric, people come up to me and they'll hear this and they'll be like, oh my God, you're here for great things. You're going to do great things. God kept you here. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I echo the same sentiment to you. Is that each and every person listening to this right now, each and every person, you have literally overcame something that has destroyed somebody else. It could have been drug abuse. It could have been physical abuse. You could have lost your parent, right? You could have been bullied, right? You could have been spiritual. Like everybody has went through something that has literally destroyed somebody else. That somebody else has lost their mind. They may have committed suicide. They may have got hooked on drugs. Like everybody has been through something. Even the person, I have people that come to me that they're like trust funds, baby. Like the parents are multimillionaires. They've had everything their whole life. And they feel like they don't know themselves because they've had everything their whole life, right? So it doesn't matter. It's not about coming from a tough environment, right? I wasn't in poverty, right? So I didn't come from poverty. We were kind of like middle class more than anything, right? So it's not about coming from the streets or like everybody has been through something that has destroyed somebody else. So if you're still here, and obviously you have to be in your right mind to be listening to this, you have to be here for a major reason.
Yeah, no, that's pretty awesome. Okay, so you're reflecting in jail. How did you even get the idea to journal, by the way?
I don't know. That's a phenomenal question. Where did I get the idea to journal? I think I was just in there, man, and you don't have an outlet, so there's nobody to talk to. So I guess at some point, I think I got it through, at some point. That's a phenomenal question. I think I just started writing as an outlet. And I think what I also did, it was part of like writing as an outlet and also reading books and like writing down the parts that stuck out the most. So like writing down a quote, going back, writing down what I heard of it, So I love reading a book, but also like writing it down as well to remember the parts that I want to remember the most. And I think that just steamed over to, journaling and everything, right? It's like I have all my journals still with me to this day. I remember just looking back at some of them and just looking back at what was I thinking, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, what was going on in my mind? So yeah, I think it became yeah.
Journaling, I mean, it's one of those things that it's interesting. The reason I'm interested in what you said is because when I kind of made my 180 shift back in 2015 and found, hired my first coach and started journaling, that was one of the first things she told me I needed to do. Now I have people who pay me to coach them and I can't get them to start journaling to save their life. And here you are, you're like, yeah, I was in prison and I started journaling. I'm like, all right, hold on. What was it? Because I know that's a lifesaver, man.
Yeah. And I tell people to find the medium that works best. Some of my clients, I tell them do a video. They start video journaling themselves, and it's better than talking. I mean, it's better talking and listening to it than writing. But for me, it became like a decompressor. It became like the pressure release valve. And it allowed me to get out my thoughts, allowed me to get out my anger. I was very angry. I had a lot of people that betrayed me when I went to jail. People thought I was going to get sentenced to 10 years in prison. So, people that I considered my best friend and close to me were stealing and, taking things because people thought I wasn't going to be coming, home anytime soon. So I had a lot of anger and a lot of resentment. And I think I use journaling as a way to kind of get out my mind, and I go back and look at some of the things I was writing and it was very revengeful. It was very, just filled with a lot of anger. But I think through that process, I spent about a year in jail and it was the perfect time. Like if I would have gotten out any months earlier, I would be a different person that you're speaking with. But it gave me enough time to just release it all and really be present to the blessings in my life. Be present to even me being alive. If you're still enough and you just quiet yourself and you stop trying to like do things and you just be still, I promise you, it's impossible to miss the beauty. It's impossible to miss the love. It's impossible to miss the grace, the gratitude. It took so much, like so many blessings had to occur for somebody to be here at this point in time. And if you're still enough, you'll never miss it again. And when I saw that, it was like if you ever been in a situation, everybody can relate to this. Like something has happened to your life, you're like, God, listen, if you get me out of this, I promise to change. Right? Like, I'll never go back. I promise to be different. I promise to be better. And then you get through it and then you go back. Yeah. Right? Like this time when I said it, I meant it. I'm like, yo, listen, like if I get out of this, and I would never, forgiveness is what got me out of jail. I wholeheartedly believe forgiveness was the key that unlocked me out of jail. And I remember saying, God, I would never go back. Like I'll never go back. And I forgive myself for all the strain that I've put on my mom throughout the years. You know, I forgive myself for that. And I forgive each and every person that took or stole from me. And if I got out, I want to seek revenge. And when I said it, I meant it. And I felt like this release. And no lie, like next day, maybe it's the next day, maybe my memory thinks it's the next day, but it could have been a week. But like somewhere in the next week or so, right? I had a surprise visit from my lawyer. He came to see me. I'm like, what is he doing here? And he came to see me. He was like, hey, we're able to get a lot of the cases dropped. You can get out of jail now and get sentenced to 3 years on house arrest. And I was out of jail within the next month. And I wholeheartedly believe because it was the forgiveness of myself, others, releasing the damage that I caused on people. And it was like, you know, if God can forgive me and my mom can forgive me and these people for all the things that I've done, then why can't I forgive people for, you know, the wrong that they've done to me? And I wholeheartedly believe that's what freed me.
How was it manifesting in you that you knew, like, what were you feeling where you knew you had to forgive yourself for, I get forgiving others and letting that go, but forgiving yourself? Because, you know, they say you can't see the picture when you're in the frame.
Yeah.
So how did you know that that's something that was weighing down on you? What was it showing up as?
Yeah, it for me, what it was looking at was I mean, people know like the quote unquote highlights, like me going to jail, me getting shot, like, but for all those things those stories and like there's so many other things in between that will never get spoken about. Like people will never know those different things. So it's like just being present with how much that I've done. I've been the closest anybody could get to death. I've been the closest anybody can ever get to throwing their life away in prison. And it's like to see that I'm still here and that things still happen. I had to really just be present to that. And I was like, wow, I've really been kind of like playing with God. It's been a smack in the face to God, frankly, you know, for me making it through all these situations. And now I realized that it's like, I guess it was the realization of thinking the forgiveness that God had for me. Like thinking of the forgiveness that God had for me. And that's the only reason I was able to forgive others. I didn't forgive others first. I had to forgive myself first. And then if I forgave myself first, then it's like, if God can forgive me, and I got to forgive myself for playing with God. I got to forgive myself for doing this to my mom because I see the destruction. My mom is my world, you know, and I'm a very bright person. I could have did anything in this world. It was easy making grades. Like I've been on honor roll. Like I could have did anything, right? So it's not like this was the only path that was destined to me, right? I don't come from that. Like I got into that. My family they weren't drug dealers. Like I got into that myself. I could have did anything. I chose this path. Right. So seeing the destruction and just really reflecting on how much hurt, I think it was my mom more than anything, how much hurt I caused my mom. I had to forgive myself for that. And now that allowed me to forgive others. But it was an inside out process first. It was like I need to forgive myself. And then from forgiving myself, I have the energy and the capability to forgive others.
What's your religion?
I don't have a religion.
So when you say God forgave me, what does that mean?
Yeah. So what I subscribe to is whatever higher power somebody believes in, right? So to believe that you have a purpose, in my opinion, you have to believe in something higher than yourself. Because saying you have a purpose means saying that I have meaning. Purpose is nothing but meaning. It's saying that I have meaning here on earth. I have something to do, something to fulfill, a person to become, a person to be an impact to make on this world, right?
Right.
So in order to do that, then you have to say that something else, I have this something, I come from something that brought me here to do something, right? Mm-hmm. So wherever somebody believes in Allah, Buddha, Jesus, nature, doorknob, Jack, I don't care. Just live in accordance with what is it that you believe in the most. I don't care if you don't believe in anything. So that doesn't just be the best whatever you believe. Like, so you're the atheist, be the best atheist in this world. If you're a Christian, be the best Christian in the world. I don't care what somebody believes in. I like to believe that there's something higher than myself, but now it's the realization that that thing higher than myself is within me. It's not out here. Like God isn't out here, right?
Yeah,
God
where
is
does
here.
God end and you begin, right? Like,
Yeah, it doesn't, right? Like, so it was like God is here, and I grew up, Christian. We've been to church, things like, I wouldn't say that I was like a diehard Christian or anything like that, right? But now it's become about that. It's like, to me, I look at religions like languages. It's like, most likely you speak the language based off of where is it that you grew up, where is it that you was raised, right? If we were raised in Mexico, we'd be speaking Spanish or something, right? If we were raised in Kenya, we'd be speaking Swahili or something, right? But we speak English. So typically people have their religions based off of where is it that they were born. And then to me, it's like languages, we're all saying the same thing, we're just saying it in a different way. And that's how I look at religion as well. And if you look at religion and you just look at the overlying principles and concepts, is to have good character. Like, if all you did was just have good character, do right by people, love people, treat people better, like serve people, believe in, like, if all you did was do that, then you couldn't tell what religion anybody would be. It's outside of maybe their clothing or whatever, right? It's the overlying principles that I believe in the most. The spiritual system that I do study, though, it's called Ifa. It's the wisdom of nature and universal truth. And it's more of a spirituality system and practice, more than anything. In my belief, the best way to understand God, in some indigenous religions, the word God is unfathomable, unspeakable. Like, we say God, but they don't have a word for it. Like, you can't grasp or fathom this energy, this concept, right? So for me, the best way to understand the creator, you can never understand God. So the best way to understand God, quote unquote, is to study everything that comes from God. So the best way to understand the creator is to study his creations. So I study people, I study nature, I study planets, I study universal laws, I study everything that comes from God. And all these things are within you. And if you look at all these things and you study the attributes of it, then you'll get to a point where you can see yourself in everything. And to me, that's spirituality, that's oneness.
yeah. So when I hear you speak and tell your story, when you say God forgave me, I'm like, well, I kind of subscribe, I think, very similarly to what you subscribe to. No real religion, just a higher power, and very similar to what you're saying. So I'm in agreement. But I also know that that energy doesn't make mistakes. I also know
No.
that every creation is perfect, whole, and complete. And so maybe
Yeah.
that's who you had to be to become who you are now, right? Like, there's no mistakes. Like, there's nothing to really apologize for. There's nothing to forgive, because you came exactly the law of gestation, right? Like you said, universal laws. It takes time for the seed to grow.
Yeah.
You had to grow through some muddy shit before
Yeah.
you became Kusudi, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, man. I
Yeah.
love your story. All right. So where was the turning point? Where was the, all right. I hear in jail, you're like, all right, I'm giving this up, not doing this again. God, let me out. I forgive everybody. Just give me another shot. And you get out. What do you actually do? Because you're still, the habits you have to form, you have to become somebody completely different, right? From who you were when you
Yeah.
went in. Tell me about
Yeah.
that transformation. And by the way,
Yeah.
real quick, for those of you who are listening to this, maybe your situation wasn't that extreme, but right now, maybe you're working at a job where you're driving to work every day, hating going to that job, yet you're wishing they don't fire you that day. You want something more, but you don't know where to start, how to do it, what to do. You just feel stuck. Like, that's the point. That's the moment of your life you're in. Maybe you're not in jail, but you're in jail.
Yeah. You know what I tell people is crazy, right? Is when I got out outside of jail, I saw that more people are mentally locked up than anything. And mentally locked up is being worse than physically locked up.
So
I'd
much.
rather be in a physical jail than a mental jail. A
Yep.
physical jail, you're in there and you know when you're getting out. A mental jail, you could go to your grave and never even know it. More people are mentally locked up than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And like you just said, this to answer your question, this is about to be so great for anybody that's in that period of their life and a period of transition, whatever that transitioning is for yourself. So this is the period that you were asking about before we recorded as well. It's like, okay, you got out of jail and then you became personal development and everything, but like, what happened in the middle of that, right? So when I got out of jail, I got sentenced to 3 years on house arrest. And that was like that's the middle period. So when I was 18 years old, I watched The Secret. All right. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I watched The Secret talking about the law of attraction. So I watched it when I was 18 and it worked. I just applied it to the streets. I made a lot of money. Like, it was absolutely phenomenal, right? Law of attraction works. So now that I'm out of jail and I remember watching The Secret, I'm like, like I want to dive back into that, but I want to use it for good now. Like I want to figure out and dive back into that. So I watched The Secret and then I just started diving into YouTube, like law of attraction, and just became this YouTube kind of rabbit hole.
Dude, there's a
And
missing piece to your story, man. There's this
yeah,
missing piece because listen, a 20-year-old, 21-year-old gangbanger, they're not watching that. They're not watching The Secret. There's like at 18, when you're selling drugs, you watch this, you watch Bob Proctor. Really? That's what you
I
did?
did. My
All right, I
mom,
got it.
my
I got it.
mom.
That's fine. I get that. But like you get out of jail, there's got to be, this is like the intuition. You're either tapped in, tuned in, turned on, like Esther Hicks says, or there's something different, because that's not a natural thing to do, right? Like I had friends that got out of jail and they were on house arrest. They didn't watch The Secret.
So let me test it, right? I love your questions because you love like dialing in. It's like Tony. I
Yes.
remember being on stage with Tony, and I'm talking to Tony about, he wants to hear my story. I'm telling him my story. He's like, this is great. He was like, but what is the moment? Like, what is the moment where everything shifted? Like, what is that moment? Like, I want to know the moment, right? So you're kind of like asking for that moment, right? I think the moment that occurred is when I was in jail. I thought about all the money I made and everything that I was able to accomplish. And I said, if I apply myself in a way which I don't have to worry about somebody killing me for it, I don't have to worry about getting robbed, and I don't have to worry about the police taking it, then I should be able to shift this world, because I can make a lot of things happen quick. And I knew I wasn't going back. Remember I said, if you forgive me, I promise I'll never go back. So when I got out of jail, I knew 100% I was not going back to the streets, right? I was not going back to the streets. So in that period, that's kind of when I'm thinking about, what is it that I want to do? Like, what is it that I want to do in life? So I got back into school. I did a year of college before I went to jail. So I got back into school. I'm on house arrest. I get back into school. And I remember like I was in accounting class and the teacher told me I was good at accounting. So I'm like I'm online looking up like how much does accounting makes. But I love psychologists, how much does psychologist. I remember looking at these things. I'll never forget. And I remember sitting in my mom's, standing in the kitchen, and I had a vision. I had a vision of myself speaking on stage in front of millions of people. And when I had the vision, it gave me goosebumps. And I'm like, this is real. Like, this is what I have to be doing.
And I'm getting goosebumps right now, man.
Yeah, I'm like, this is what I have to be doing. And I think that's what steamrolled the personal development. That's what got me back into The Secret. That's what's getting me back into personal development. That's when I come past Tony Robbins. That's when I come past, the Les Browns. That's when I come past the Bob Proctor. Like, that's when I'm coming past these people. And that just kind of really steamrolled into my personal development journey of writing down goals. And, I ended up spending 17 months on house arrest. So here's the missing link for you too, right? So now let me tell you another missing piece. So, okay, now you're getting into personal development and everything, but how did that transition to you actually speaking and doing something out of it, right? So just quick backstory. So I'm on house arrest. I hear this guy on YouTube talking about like personal power. I'm like, who the hell is this guy speaking at like the 7-minute mark? I go into it, it's Tony Robbins. I hear him talk about his Netflix special, I'm Not Your Guru. I go watch I'm Not Your Guru. Again, like you said, I didn't know what better was, but better looked like in that room. Like better looked like at his event. It's just the only problem was his event was in 7 months and his event was in Florida. I'm in house arrest in my mom's basement. I have 2 more years on house arrest, and you can't leave your house unless you're going to work or school. And it's in Florida, and the event was $5,000, and I have like $20 in my account, and I'm making bagels for Walmart, making $11 an hour. All right. And I want everybody to listen to the story as if it's not about me, but listen to it as if it's about you. And what are the extent that you're willing to go to in order to get better? And I promise you this, when you have a conviction, the universe conforms in order to seize it through. Like the universe is going to conform to see your vision through, right? So now I'm like, I got to go to Tony Robbins. $5,000, I come up with the money. I had a Jordan shoe collection, like 40, 50 pair of Jordans. I started selling my Jordans. I started working like 70 hours a week, making bagels, working overtime, right? Some months go past. I finally have the ticket. I finally have the money. The last day the ticket was on sale for $5,000, I purchased the ticket. Everybody thought I was crazy. It left the same $20 I started with. Now I'm back to $20, right? So I got $20 in the Tony Robbins ticket, but I'm on house arrest in my mom's basement. People thought I was absolutely insane. Who the hell is Tony Robbins? What do you mean? My mom is like, son, you can't even leave the house. How are you going to get to this event? My brother's like, bro, I'll give you $1,000 there and call you give me $1,000. I'll call you every morning to motivate you. You don't have to spend $5,000 to go to see Tony Robbins, right? Just give me $1,000, I'll motivate you. But I had a vision for myself. So I remember calling my lawyer. I'm like, Brad, I need to, get off of house arrest. He's like, Kavan, what are you talking about? Like, you have house arrest in like 3 different counties. I said, I have to get off of house arrest. He said, I mean, it's going to be hard. He said, it'll be a long shot. I said, is it possible? He said, yeah, it's possible. But I said, no more buts. I said, let's just focus on it's possible and let's make it happen. We petitioned the courts. I got off of house arrest. They let me off of house arrest half of my time because I went back to school. I was doing everything I was supposed to do. So I got sentenced to 34 months on house arrest. They let me off of house arrest the 17-month mark. The 17-month mark was 2 weeks before the Tony Robbins conference. I went out to Tony Robbins. I slept in my car, washed up in Burger King, right? I just posted the video of me washed up in Burger King maybe a couple of weeks ago on my Facebook. Washed up in Burger King at his event for 5 days. And this was the shift. At his event, he talked about stories, like the stories that you tell yourself. And this is like my first event. So at this event, people are asking like, hey, what brought you here, right? At this time, I'm a 23-year-old Black kid. There's like middle-aged Caucasian people. Like there's not a lot of 23-year-old Black kids that just came out of jail off of house arrest. So I was like, people are going to judge me. I'm not going to tell them my story. I'm going to tell them that I came here because of the YouTube special, the Netflix special. I'm not going to tell them that I just got off of house arrest. But Tony talked about the stories that you have in your life. And I'm like, I wonder if the story that I'm telling myself is not real. So I said, you know what, I'm going to test out this Tony guy and see if people are going to judge me. So on break, I used to go down to the front of the room. And I go down to the front of the room, I introduce myself. Hello, my name is Kavan. I'm 23 years old. I'm starting this new journey of my life. There's one piece of advice you can give me, what would it be? The people at the front, I'm paying $5,000 and I'm in the back. So I'm like, oh, imagine how much you're paying in the front. I need to talk to them. And my intention was to be a mentor, right? So if you want to be hot, get next to the fire. Proximity is power. So a guy tapped me on my shoulder and he said, I turned around and said, hey, what are you doing here? And I started telling him my story. And he said, oh my God, this is amazing. He said, you say you want to inspire millions of people, right? Because I had the vision of speaking in front of millions of people. I said, yeah. He said, well, let me record you telling your story. I'm the top videographer for Tony Robbins. So he recorded me telling my story. He put it on Facebook, shouted out to the whole community. It got thousands of views. People started reaching out to me from all over the world. And they're telling me the most intimate and vulnerable things about their life. Women, oh my God, I've been molested. I've been raped. Men, I have a pornography addiction. I mean, people are just telling me I'm still in prostitution. Like people are just telling me things that they've done and they've been through and their most like vulnerable details of their life. And it taught me a very powerful lesson. I read this quote by Marianne Williamson when I was in jail. And the quote starts off that says, our deepest fears is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And the last part of the quote is a part that always stuck with me. She says, as you let your light shine, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. Mm. As you're liberated from your own fears, your presence automatically liberates others. Because I was liberated from the fear of people judging me off of my story, then those who interacted with me, they were liberated as well. So they didn't think that I was going to judge them. Why would this guy judge me? He's been to jail, he did this, he's not going to judge me. And it showed me the power of being vulnerable and being authentic and sharing my story. So that's what got me into speaking. People saw my story. People reached out. Hey, could you come speak at my school? Could you come speak with my clients? Could you come speak with my business? And that's what steamrolled the speaking about 5-6 years ago. And that's what got me to speak in schools and colleges and universities and businesses in Africa and India. And that eventually led over to me coaching clients and everything as well. So that was the connect that got me to the person that you see today.
How many people were in the back of that room with you?
The back of the room.
Yeah, with Tony Robbins event.
How many people were at the Tony Robbins event?
Towards the back, yeah.
Oh, so the event was 5,000 people. I'm just like in the last row.
Last row. 5,000 people. How many of them do you think went up to the front row to ask for advice?
Probably none of them.
Probably not.
Very few. Very few. I'm not going to say I'm the only.
I don't know if it's conscious or subconscious for you, but you're like tapping into your intuition. Like there's this, we've all been gifted with that faculty of intuition. We all have it.
Yeah.
You just kind of take action on it.
Yeah.
You're tuned in.
I am that there's no gap between the aligned thoughts I think and the actions I take.
I love
there's
it.
No, if I have an aligned thought, I didn't say all thoughts are not aligned. There's passive and there's active thoughts, right? You have a thought to rob the Brinks trucks when you see it. I'm not going to take action, right? So I am that there's no gap between the aligned thoughts I think and the actions that I take.
Dude, say that again.
You have phenomenal insights. I want to tell you that. I'm really loving this. Like
I'm loving this too. I like this interview.
I'm sending a lot of podcasts, and it's like I've told the stories, right? But like you catch the little things. It's like, oh, like your intuition to go to the front. So I love that, Eric. I'm really enjoying this.
Well, I told myself this will be the best podcast this year. Yeah. I really did. And here we are. And I'm really feeling like it is. So sorry for all the past guests this year, but this one's the best so far. I'm gonna just go back to your past. One more question, and then we'll shoot forward.
Yeah,
you ahead. Said you had this thought when you turned 18 that year something life-changing was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, do you think you getting shot is because you created that? Because you had that thought, or was it you see what I'm trying to get to? Like, did you create that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's like, who comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes.
You know, like, so I don't know, and we'll split hairs.
All right. I didn't know if you gave it thought or not.
Yeah, so I think there's a difference between intuition and creation.
Yes.
So I think intuition, it comes from a feeling that is really not rooted in anything. It's just something telling you.
Well, you know what's telling you. It's you being connected to the universe and vibrating at a certain level and feeling that this is what you got to do. And by the way, when we say feelings, I believe feelings is just our language to say, I'm consciously aware of the level I'm vibrating on.
It's a vibration, right?
It's a vibration.
Like it's feelings equal to frequency that you vibrate on, right?
Totally.
So you're talking about energy. You're giving language to an energetic something.
That's right. Yeah.
So when I say rooted in anything, yes, rooted in source, rooted in God, but it wasn't rooted in anything in reality.
Right.
It wasn't that something was happening in that time that I felt fearful about. I think that's would have been created. Like, let's just say something was happening, I was into it with people or something, and now I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting into shootouts or something like this, and like, if I don't leave by the end of this year, I'm gonna get shot. Like, that would have been rooted in something, and then I think that's would have been created. It would have been created out of fear. At that time period when I have it, there was no logically anything that I could point to in my reality that I could associate that thought with this event. And there was nothing there. That's all a memory is. All a memory is a feeling associated. It's the linkage between an event and action, something that took place in your life, and a feeling or thought. That's why when you listen to a song, you think about when you were a time period of your life, right? When you smell certain things, you think about where you were at. When you watch a certain movie, you may think about the person that you love the most, your past relationship, how you guys used to watch this movie together, because it's linked to something. Mm-hmm. That that if I don't leave this state in Indianapolis by the end of this year, something life changing is going to happen. It had no level of connective tissue to it at the time. So I think it was, I would say it was intuition. It wasn't creation.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Cool. So now you're speaking after the Tony Robbins event. You're getting better. You're going all over the world. By the way, if you go to the Instagram, I am Kusudi, and check out the videos in Africa. I mean, the kids are, Kusudi. I mean, they're going wild. I loved it, man. What was the next chapter for you? Where did you go from there?
So after Tony Robbins, it really just became about, expanding what is it that I was doing, So looking to speak, it wasn't easy. I didn't just like overnight, now I'm speaking around the world. Like, no, it's like, I was telling one of my students this yesterday, I'm like, you got to get in action. Like, everybody's looking at where I'm at now. Like now I'm able to coach, celebrities and influencers and very successful people. But it's like at that time, like I was grinding. Like I was literally looking for the footage to show to my mastermind later on today. Like I remember going to like 60, 70 different schools across Indianapolis and, the neighbor, just going to schools, looking to speak to the principals, trying to speak at their schools. And they all turned me down. Like literally, like 60 schools turned me down. So it became just having this vision. But to me, you're supposed to have the sweet spot of a vision. This is the sweet spot, even goal setting, right? The sweet spot of a vision is having a vision that's so big that you have absolutely no idea how you're going to achieve it, but it's small enough for you to have full belief that you can. That's the sweet spot. Like people leave a conference and they're like, I'm going to make $1 billion, but like they don't believe they can. And now you're never achieving things that you don't even believe you can achieve. It's the belief that makes it so.
Belief.
So I had this.
Yeah,
it drives it. It's the thing. It's what makes it come to pass. So I had this belief that I can speak around the world, I can help people, and I can inspire over 1 billion people to discover and live in their purpose. 5.11 billion people. I have a full belief I have the ability to achieve that, and I will. And it's just unfolding at this point. It's already done. I've spoken it, I've written it. It's already done. By definition, if you look at the word future, by definition, the definition of future is the time or point of time after speaking or writing, time yet to come. So literally when you speak and you write something, by definition, that is your future. And if you speak it and you write it enough, it'll be your present. So it just became a path of just like that vision, just redoing that, reiterating that vision, looking to speak. I created my t-shirts, looking to sell t-shirts, putting myself in that environment, right? I've been to 13 Tony Robbins events at this point, and I've only had to pay for the first one because after that I got mentors. I met people. The people on stages became my mentors. I'm traveling with the people on stages. Now I'm being up on stage at Tony Robbins, right? Now I'm backstage with Tony. He's invited me to speak on stage. I've raised $150,000 through his community and have taken over 100 underprivileged kids, underprivileged minority kids, Tony Robbins event. And it's just this constant never ending of improving this vision and just constant growth to expansion to get to where I'm at right now in my life.
Man, I love that. So do you know who Jesse Itzler is?
Yeah. I've had the privilege of meeting him.
He's amazing, right? Well, just like, I don't know, maybe like a month ago or a couple of weeks ago, he put out this thing that he's doing a commencement address. And he started out with, he said, I've been speaking all over the world. I'm a billionaire. I've done, list out all the things. He owned Marquis Jet. He, Sarah Blakely's his wife. He's ran, I don't know how many 100-mile races. By the way, his Living with a Seal book is probably one of my favorite books. I laugh out loud every time I read it.
Yeah.
And he's like, and not one single university invited me to be their commencement speaker this year. So you know what? I'm creating my own commencement address. And he shows up in his high school cap and gown. And he gives like 13 lessons that you never learned in college. So when you said no schools allowed you to speak, I'm like, that's it. You got to create your own. Right. What would you say to them?
You gotta create your own. I love that. I have to go watch that. I haven't seen that, but
it was a webinar. It was a webinar. You had to sign up for it. I don't know if there's a recording or anything out there, but just take a look. Jesse Itzler commencement address. He's so goofy, but it's
so goofy, so authentic, man. And that's what being a creator is. It's like if I want to speak, then here, let me create my own commitments to speak. I
I
love that
love
so
it.
much.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right, tell me about this concept of being.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's nothing that you've ever done. There's nothing that you're doing now. And there's nothing that anything that you ever will do that doesn't come from the person that you're being.
Are you
Being is
channeling
this,
Steve Hardison right now? Because your tone and like speed even changed to like almost mimic how he would say it.
yeah, no, it's a state. It's not, it's when you think about being, it is and my concept of being has deeply been more deepened and expansive because of the work that I've done with Steve Hardison. He's been an absolutely angel. I want to shout him out. He's an angel. He's whatever someone wants to call him, a prophet, a guru, whatever he is. He's all that people say about him. He's absolutely phenomenal. It's like Yoda sitting with like Luke Skywalker or something, or like I'm like Neo and he's Morpheus. Like he's truly phenomenal.
How did you meet
So
him, by the way?
I read his book. Somebody told me about his book like last year in March, and somebody said, "Hey, I promise you." His name is Steve Bacon. Shout out Steve Bacon. He said, "Spirit is telling me to tell you," and it was my first conversation with him. Somebody just introduced me, but he said, "Spirit is telling me to tell you that if you sit still for the next 30 days, and if you read this book, something profoundly will happen in your life." So I did that, and it did. My life shifted greatly, and now fast forward, that was last March, not this March of 2023, but of 2022. So now we're in November of 2022, and I'm in Arizona. And I remember that Steve Bacon was in Arizona. It's like if we had this podcast and we never really talked again, we stayed in contact. But then I'm like, oh, I'm in the same city as Eric. Let me hit Eric up. It was one of those things, right? So I'm like, yo, we're here. We've talked. Like, let's meet up. So we meet up. We have lunch. And then I fly out the airport at like 5 a.m. the next day. And he's like, hey, there's a boxing fight. He's like, why don't you just come to my house and let's watch the fight? So we're watching the fight and we're just kind of talking about life. And he was like, so he said, what is it that you want to create? And I said, I'm going to create the biggest personal development movement this world has ever seen. I'm creating that now. And he said, if that's what you want to do, then you need to go see the wizard. Steve. You need to go have a session with Steve Hardison. A session with Steve Hardison, by the way, is $10,000 for 2 hours. that's the least expensive. It's $10,000 for 2 hours. So I said, all right, cool. Like my flight, this is like it's like midnight, and my flight is at like 5 in the morning. We're supposed to be going to the airport in a couple hours. And I said, all right, cool. I said, you think if I push back my flight, I could get a session with him? And he said, I just sold one of my businesses. I had a rental car company. I sold the business. So I'm like, this is what I'm going to do to celebrate myself, right? I was about to go buy like a Rolex. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do a session with Steve Hardison. So he's like, I don't know if I could get a session with him. He said, but I'll connect you. So I pushed off my flight for like 5 days. I gave myself time to connect with him and like figure out a time. And the next day he connected with us. He connected me with Steve. And Steve was like, nice to meet you. Here's my number. Give me a call. Well, Steve has been following me on social media the months before.
Hardison?
And I don't even know. Yeah, Hardison. Like he was following me. Like he would like some things. And I'm like, oh my God, he liked my photos, right? So I get on a call with him. And, the first thing Steve is going to ask me is like, so tell me, who are you? And, what is it that you want to do? What brought you to me? So we're talking this, that, and the third. And I said, hey, I actually pushed back my flight. I was supposed to fly out this morning. I said, I pushed back my flight. Is there a way I could see you before my flight leaves on Thursday? And he said, wow, that's an extraordinary level of commitment. And he said, if you're that commitment that you move back your flight, then I'll be committed to move things around in my life in order to be with you. He said, I've never have moved things around to be with a client this fast. So he said, when you wire the money, we'll set that time. I don't schedule any time until the money's there. And then we'll schedule the time and everything. So we scheduled our time, and that was back in November. And that was my first session with Steve. And that first session altered everything. And I said, I got to work with this guy for a year. I got to create working with him for a year. And that's what I did. So I literally moved to Phoenix. I live in Phoenix now. I moved here 3 months ago just to be close to him. He's 15 minutes up the street now.
No way.
Just to be to work with him for the year. Yeah.
What a story. So
Yeah.
how do you answer that question now? Who are you?
Oh, do you have time? Do you want to know
Yeah,
my name? Or do you want to know who I am?
I want to know who you are. We know your name.
Yeah. Yeah. So give me a little space as I create this.
All
So
right.
who I am. I'm a God, a creator, and through my thoughts, feelings, and words, I create the reality in which I live in. I'm right where I'm supposed to be, experiencing all there is to experience in this moment. I am the stillness that hears the whisper of God and my ancestors in every moment. I am that there's no gap between the aligned thoughts I think and the actions that I take. I am the space in which all human transformation occurs. I find ways to serve, love, and acknowledge each and every person that's in front of me in the moment. Whoever shows up in the moment is the most important person for me to be with in the moment. I am loved and adored by billions of people worldwide. I am the space that attracts enormous sums of wealth in every moment. Spirit gives me multi-million dollar ideas that effortlessly manifest itself in its physical equivalent. I am that every word I speak elevates the spirits of those listening. I am that I need nothing because I am everything. I am only always in the moment. This is who I am. My mom named me Karan, but the people named me Kusudi.
Dude, I think I just fell in love with you. I've never fallen in love with a man before, but there's always a first, I guess.
Thank you.
That was
That's who I am.
powerful, Kusudi. I'm like, I got chills.
Yeah, that's who
How
I
long,
am.
how long did it take you to create that or realize that? Did you have to realize that's who you were or create you to be that?
Yeah, it's kind of both. For every problem that you think you are, you think you have in your life, there's a version of yourself that's a solution. And if you could find and tap into, so this is what I work with my clients is I help them become aware of the thoughts and judgments that they have on themselves that creates the reality in which they live in. I show them who is it that they're being that's created their world. Take the case that everything outwardly in your world is a manifestation and a reflection of who you're being inwardly. And if you want your outerly environment to change, right? The money, the relationship, the career, the city, right? Most people, they go from relationship to relationship, job to job, city to city, and they're changing everything outwardly, and their quality of life is not really changing. And it's because you're trying to change everything outwardly. You're trying to change the creation instead of changing the inner creator, the inner being that's manifesting everything outwardly. So if you knew and you truly grasped that the life that you have right now looks like the exact accumulation of all the thoughts that you think the most, then you will become really vigilant at the thoughts that you think. And most people are unaware. What I just created from you, that wasn't affirmations. Like affirmations is like things to say that is created out of thin air. Oh, I'm powerful. I'm a multimillionaire. Like, no, I find the thoughts, and I had to do a process of looking at the thoughts and the judgments that I have on myself and creating things out of that. So, I don't take action quick enough. Well, I am that there's no gap between the aligned thoughts I think and the actions that I take. It got created from something. I taking something that was, I don't even like saying negative or positive. I like saying aligned or unaligned. I took a thought that was unaligned. It's very unaligned to think that I don't take action, but I want to change the world. That's an unaligned thought. That's not going to get me there. I take something, and a universal principle is polarity. For every positive on the equal to opposite end, there has to be, for every negative on the equal opposite end, there has to be a positive and vice versa. So for every thought that you have about yourself that you feel like is negative, oh, I don't take enough action. I procrastinate too much. I am that there's no gap between the aligned thoughts I think and the actions that I take. I should be further ahead.
But then when it comes to actually taking the action in that case, because there are a lot of people who don't take the action, myself included, by the way, in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, how do you just by saying I am that, does that propel you to take action? Is it that easy?
I'm not saying it. I'm coming from it.
You're coming from
So So play with me with this. So this is
Let's
how
do it.
being works.
Yes.
So let's look at nature. This is why I always study parallels to learn from. So in nature, if you plant an apple seed, what is it that you will have?
An apple tree.
An apple tree, and that will produce apples.
Apples.
Okay, you're doing great. If you plant a blueberry seed, what is it that you'll have?
Do blueberries have seeds? Because if they do, blueberries, you'll have blueberries.
Okay. All right, I love that. You have
I don't know.
blueberries.
I've eaten blueberries. I don't think I've ever seen a blueberry seed, but all right. Let's do it.
Okay. Eric, you're 2 for 2. So let's see if we can go 3 for 3.
All right.
So if you plant a oak seed, what is it that you get?
An oak tree.
Got it. You get an oak tree. So let's just play with a thought that I don't take action. So if you plant the seed that I don't take action, what is it that you're going to get?
Not taking action.
You're going to get not taking action. It doesn't matter how much action you take. I coach people who are, one of my clients sold a business for $50 million. And he said, I'm not doing enough. It doesn't matter how much doing you will get. It's never going to be enough because you're coming from, I don't do enough.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're coming from, I don't take enough action, what is it that you do when you feel like I don't take enough action? You beat yourself up, you procrastinate, you feel overwhelmed. And then what is it that you're going to have? You're going to have the results of somebody that doesn't take action. So being isn't a thought. I mean, it isn't a affirmation. It is something to say. It's a context to live into and come from. So if I'm coming from, hurt people do hurt things. When you're pissed off, you do pissed off things. When you're mad, you do mad things. When you're happy, you do happy things. Well, when I am that there's no gap between the aligned thoughts I think and the actions that I take. I do the things that there is no gap between the aligned thoughts I think and the actions I take. So it's 11:30 last night, and I'm like, I need to go to the gym. I haven't worked out today. And then I tell myself, I said, I'm not going to the gym. Like, it's already 11:30. And I said, is going to the gym an aligned thought? I said, yeah. I said, well, I am that there's no action between the aligned thoughts I think and the actions I take. So I go to the gym because that's what a person who's coming from that space would do. So being is a coming from. It's the seed that produces the fruits of your life. If you want to look at the fruits of your life, I just got to look at the person you've been being. Your being is going to tell me everything. Your being is going to tell me the type of life. You can't have anything outside of the person that you're being. You attract who you are and you create from you are. It's a coming from.
So what steps, how do you help somebody come from a different place when they've been coming from that? And when you say place you're coming from, really what we're talking about is their subconscious belief of themselves. It's something they're not really aware of. They call it procrastination, but that procrastination may be that they don't, they believe themselves not to be an entrepreneur. They believe themselves to be, not attractive or not a good public speaker or whatever. Like, one of my biggest aha moments, man, I'll share this with you really quick. And I uncovered this maybe a year ago. So I moved to America from Russia and I came here. I was 10 years old. I couldn't speak English. And so I go to 4th grade and the teacher asks me to read a paragraph out of a book. And I've probably been here for about a year and a half. Bugs Bunny taught me how to speak English. I used to greet people with "What's up, doc?" Right? And so I'm reading this paragraph. And the word Arkansas is in the paragraph. And I said, Arkansas. Man, everybody laughed. The whole class laughed. The teacher laughed. And forward 20 plus, 20 years later, I'm 42 now. I speak on stages. Every time I go to speak, my heart's racing. My palms are sweaty. Like, I couldn't figure out what the hell. I enjoy it. I get energy from speaking, but I get super nervous. I don't want to do it with my stomach, bubble guts. And it came to the fact that back when I was in 4th grade, everybody laughed at me. And somewhere a belief was formed that people are going to laugh at you if you make a mistake. So might as well not speak. It was not an aligning thought. How do people get rid of those? How do you get rid of change your subconscious belief about yourself or where you're coming from?
Yeah, that's beautiful. See, that's being and doing. You're doing speaking, but you're being, I'm not a good speaker.
Yes. Yeah. What a good way of.
Yeah, that's what most people do in their life. Most people try to outdo their being. You can't outdo your being. And that's why the results that you have are not as great as the results that you will have when you're aligned with, I'm a phenomenal speaker. And you come from, I'm a phenomenal speaker. You can be with people then. See, I already know you that when you were, before you excavated and knew that that was the underlying belief and changed it, you're speaking, but you're in your mind. You're trying not to mess up. You're thinking about how you look. You're thinking about, did you say this right? And you're actually not being with people. You're just trying to outdo, I'm not a good speaker.
I'm being a performer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then when you're aligned, when your full being, your essence, who you are is in alignment with what is it that you're doing, the presence is different, the love is different, the confidence is different, because now you're aligned with your truest nature.
Dude, you're right on. I never ever reflected on that way, but my last year has been completely different. I was in Jamaica a couple of months ago speaking in Kingston at a business summit, and I had a presentation put up, like a PowerPoint to go through. I was there speaking about like cold calling and how to practically get new business and things like that for business leaders. Well, the presentation wasn't coming up, so they called me up on stage. The guy in the back is fumbling around. Literally like 7 minutes. I had to go off the cuff, right? And I was just being my natural self. I did not for 1 second care, or I didn't even have sweaty palms, man. That's a really good point that you brought up.
Yeah, no,
So
because
start with creating.
You're being that I'm a phenomenal speaker. So what does a phenomenal speaker do? A phenomenal speaker, they ebb and flow. They're flexible. They're just there. They can do, it doesn't matter what's happening, what's occurring. That's not changing who they are. And see, that's for most people. Most people, they're not centered in who they are. So they're thrown off by whatever is occurring in life. And you're trying to outdo life instead of shifting the thing that's actually creating it. That's the difference between being and doing. Most people try to outdo their limiting self, their limiting beliefs, the underlining of who they actually are.
Do you recommend people try to spend time on figuring out who they are being or what they believe, or just create something completely new?
Oh no, there's no way you could create something new. Huh. The first steps, to me, in my opinion, and everything that I'm saying is not true. There's only possibility that somebody could try on and it fits, or try on and it doesn't fit. It's like going to Macy's or going to a store. You look at the coat, you're going to try it on. So try on what I'm saying as a possibility, right? It's very difficult to create and get to the next level of your life if you don't even know what part of you created the level that you're currently at. So if you don't know what ways of being, what thoughts, that's the first thing I do with my clients. The first thing I do with all my executive clients is a 2-hour intensive. And this 2 hours is the most profound 2 hours of anybody's life. If somebody goes to my website, KusudiCoaching.com, and they scroll below and just read all the people, their reviews about their experience, it's the most powerful 2 hours of your life. In this 2 hours, you will see exactly who is it that you've been being that has created all aspects of your life. You have to come to that understanding first, that everything that I'm currently experiencing is my own creation. If you cannot come to that realization first, then I don't need to be talking to you. I need to be talking to whoever did create what's there. Mm-hmm. And if you're not responsible for creating your life as a whole now, you're going to say, Kusudi, my mom did this, my brother did this, the environment. I get all of that. And I know that at this point in your life, you can take full responsibility and create what is it that you want to show up. Because if you're not saying that I created everything that's shown up now, then how can you make sure that you could be at cause and effect of creating what is it that you do want to show up? How we know is that's not going to be, you're not going to create that, and then life is going to rob you out of it again. So saying I'm at cause for my creation, everything here is my own effect through my own thinking, my thoughts, the words that I speak, the feelings that I feel, the vibration that I emit the most. I created this. That's power. Because now we can create something new. That's the first step, is truly taking responsibility and understanding, understanding who is it that you've been being that has created your life in all aspects. And then let's reverse engineer it. Now that you know this is your way of being, right? What are the thoughts that you think that creates this way of being? And that's through work, right? So that's through weeks. I'm giving people it, but it's not like a step-by-step process that you're just going to do tonight. Like a fish can't see that it's in water. So that's why I highly recommend everybody to get a coach, a mentor. Like you can't hear your own limitations because you say it like it's true. Like you just say it like it's true. When a client was just with me, he was like, yo, he's in London. He's like, people in London, they don't spend money like this on personal development. And like, he's convinced that that's true. So who are you being? So now when you're being that, oh, people don't spend this much money, when I'm with you, I'm hesitant to tell you the price. I'm waiting for you I'm gonna say it and step over it. Right? So you got to see when people say things and people have accepted limitations that they don't even know that they've accepted it. And the easiest way that somebody can do for themselves, this is what you can do for yourself. It's always better with a coach, don't get me wrong. But here's what you can do for yourselves. Stop making statements and start asking questions. Statements close the mind, questions open it.
What's your favorite question to ask when you feel stuck?
Yeah. So instead of saying things like this piss me off, say, what about this pisses me off? Oh, I can never achieve that. Who would I have to be in order to achieve that? One of my favorite questions is, who do I have to be and what has to happen? Instead of saying, hey, can we hit our goal of 10.656 million in revenue this year? My question is, what has to occur in order for us to hit our goal of 10.656 million in revenue? What has to happen presupposes that it can happen. You gotta catch that. It presupposes that it can happen. It's a presupposition. Now let's just create the ingredients for it to happen.
I love that. How'd you come up with that number?
10.656 million?
Yeah.
It's my number. $888,000 a month. That's my number. 10.656 million. That's what it equals.
Man, I gotta start thinking bigger. Yeah, one thing I liked about this book is that there's questions in the back right here. And I literally would write them out in my journaling.
Yeah, and I want to tell people another thing. First of all, each and every person reading this, go get the Ultimate Coach. It's a book about you. It's not a book about Steve. If you read it as if it's about Steve, you missed the point. It's a book about you. And on the back page, you always read the back page in the first 2 pages first before you start reading the book. We're doing a book club with my whole mastermind. We have a call in an hour or 2 hours where we go over the first 30 minutes of the mastermind is the book. The last hour is the teaching. We do a book club. We just started this. It's with Steve, right? He came to my mastermind in person. We had about 3 weeks ago, and we promised him we'll all read the book together. So we're reading it. And I want to give this away to you, Eric, is when you read the book and you have the back questions as well. Who do I need to be more loving? Who do I need to be an effective parent? Who do I need to be to have miracles show up in my life every day? Insert your own questions. Who would I need to be to take my company to $1 million this year? Who would I need to be to attract clients that have a different quality of life and I can provide a different quality experience? My question that I'm asking myself daily, who would I have to be to lead a nation? Who do I need to be to lead nations? And when you read the book with that intention. Steve just gave you an outline of intentions that you could set within yourself, but you can add your own. So read the book through the lens, who would I have to be to lead a nation? And it's going to come up. This is a computer program. Anything you input, it gives you output. It's just we input, why am I so ugly? And it's like, because of your nose. Why am I not rich? Because you didn't go to college, you grew up broke. Like, it's going to give you those answers. But if you say, who would I need to be to create wealth? It's going to tell you it. Who would I need to be to have a different quality of life? It's going to tell you it. You just got to ask better questions. The quality of your life is dependent on the quality of questions that you ask yourself.
Love it, man. Love it. Kusudi, what were you hoping? And I know you weren't hoping anything. I already know the answer to it. But is there a question you wished I would have asked that I didn't?
No. To think that you should have done anything differently is insanity. To think that
no, I just don't want to miss anything. Because I got to tell you, man, like, if I rated you at an 8 based on what I saw on Instagram alone, because that's probably like 8 to 9, some guy trying to be motivational. All right. But having your presence here in person, you're like a 15 out of like 12.
Thank you. Thank you.
Your energy, seriously, your energy and your personality is so, it's addictive, it's magnetic. It's like, I feel like it's authentic. Like there's just, we just need more of that in the world, man. Like you made me better by listening to you today. And I'm so excited to bring this out. We'll have it out on Tuesday, man. Like today is, we're recording it. What's today? Wednesday. Next Tuesday, this will be the episode that's out.
Yeah. And you've expanded my state of being. You've extended my level of presence to certain insights in my life. You ask very great questions. Well, what about this one? What about this one? Take it back. I know you said this, but let's take it back. You're a phenomenal interviewer. And what I would tell anybody to answer your questions to anything you missed is fall in love with the purity and the perfection of whatever is occurring in the moment. I don't ever think what's occurring should be differently. That's where frustration, that's where anger, that's where, oh, well, Eric, you should have. I don't have any shoulds or could have or would in my life. Whatever happening is what exactly should be happening in this moment. So every question that you've asked has been perfect. Any question that you didn't ask was perfect. This was amazing. This was an amazing interview, and you're absolutely phenomenal. If you would have asked different questions, it would have been perfect as well.
There you go.
There's no area where it should be differently, Eric. And for each and every person listening to it, if you look at what is it that you created, right? Even in the Bible, I study a lot of religious texts, but in the Bible it said God created and God looked at it and said, it is good. If you looked at your whole life, even things that you don't think is good, and you said, it is good. And you stop thinking whatever is there should be differently. You stop thinking that whoever's on the elevator, you should get past the person on the elevator to get to your client on the phone. Like, no, be with the person on the elevator. Stop thinking whatever's there, it just happens to be there. Like, don't miss what's there. Don't ever step whatever's there in the moment. And whatever's occurring in the moment is exactly what should be occurring in the moment. And I'm always experiencing everything there is to experience in each moment. It's always perfect.
I appreciate that. How can people, what's the best place to follow you, reach out to you, connect with you?
Yeah. So follow me on Instagram. I am Kusudi, Kusudi. I am Kusudi. If you want to tap in with me, you can go to my website, kusudicoaching.com. Kusudi Muithi on Facebook, last name Muithi, Muithi. And those would be the best places to follow me, to reach out. If you want to link up, if you want to talk, whatever it is, those would be the best places to reach out.
Man, I'm thinking about putting like a landing page on this over this interview and selling it because it was so good.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. And anybody that would, if this resonated with you and you want to take your learnings to a deeper level, and you want to get somebody in your life to really help you excavate those thoughts that you feel like may be unaligned to your life and create something new, go to Kusudi.com, KusudiCoaching.com, reach out to me. If this resonates with you and we vibe, I would love to be the person to help you with that.
Kusudi, thank you for being here, man. You've added tremendous value. Best interview for 2023 so far. And really, really enjoyed this conversation, my man. Thank you for over delivering and spending so much time with me. I appreciate you.
For sure. I want to acknowledge you again, Eric. You've been a phenomenal interviewer. This has been absolutely fun. I know this is so much value to take out for your audience, not just because of me, but who you are in the space you create as well. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much to your listeners for their listening. And I can't wait to see what gets created out of this.
Thank you, brother.